Hi guys, I'm Ava. I'm part of the task team, and today I'm here to teach you basic cellular biology. Let's get started. First, we are going to be talking about the cellular theory. The cellular theory is basically 3 statements, and then there are 3 exceptions which are not part of the cellular theory. So let's start with the cellular theory. First statement is that cells are the smallest unit of life. The exception for this are the 2 cell organelles known as mitochondria and chloroplast. Mitochondria and chloroplast have their own genetic material. Both are cell organelles, therefore a smaller unit than a cell. The next statement in the cellular theory is that all living things are made up of cells. The exception for this is that viruses are non-cellular organisms, meaning they are not made of cells, and that they cannot perform metabolic functions on their own. However, they can. They do contain genetic material and they can reproduce by cells. And the last statement of the cellular theory is that all cells come from pre-existing cells. The exception for this is that the first cell did not originate from another cell, because that would be impossible. Spontaneous generation is just the word for how the first cell did not originate from another cell. It's basically just the exception for all cells came from pre-existing cells. Next, we are doing features that all cells share. All cells have a few features in common. There's the plasma membrane, which is a phospholipid bilayer. So the main component of the plasma membrane is phospholipids. And the plasma membrane basically protects the cell from its environment. It is the outer layer of the cell, so it protects it from its environment. And as we are going to cover later on, some cells have a cell wall, which are outside of the plasma membrane. Okay. Next feature in common is the nucleus. For eukaryotes or nucleoid region and prokaryotes. The nucleus or nucleoid region is the area containing hereditary information or DNA. This is very important because DNA gives our cells instructions on what to do. And these instructions keep us alive because these instructions tells our cells different functions they need to do, and these different functions keep us alive. The last common feature that all cells have are ribosomes. Ribosomes help synthesize proteins. We are moving on. Feel free to pause if you need to read something over. Eukaryotic domain versus prokaryotic domain. There are 2 broad types of cells, and they're in 2 domains, eukaryotic and prokaryotic. Eukaryotic have membrane-bound organelles. Their membrane-bound organelles, some of them are nucleus, ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, and lysosomes. And then in plants, the membrane-bound organelles are chloroplasts and vacuoles. Vacuoles, the only difference between a vacuole in the plant and a vacuole in other eukaryotes are that the vacuoles in the plant are much larger, and it is just usually one. And then in other eukaryotes, there are a bunch of tiny vacuoles, and a vacuole is basically used for storage. Next, genetic information known as DNA is organized into structures identified as chromosomes, which are contained within the nucleus. So eukaryotes have their DNA stored in chromosomes, and that picture on the eukaryotic side is a picture of a chromosome. It is in an X-shaped format. Okay. Uncoiled chromosomes are named chromatin, and then coiled chromosomes are just known as chromosomes. Eukaryotes are larger than prokaryotes, and then the kingdoms of eukaryotics go into plants, fungi, protists, and animalia. Plant and fungi have cell walls. Plant cell walls are made of cellulose, and fungi cell walls are made of chitin. And in prokaryotes, there are no membrane-bound organelles. The nucleoid region, which contains a singular DNA molecule. That image is just so you guys can have a visual idea of what the nucleoid region looks like. It would be like that. The nucleoid region is not protecting the DNA. The pro in prokaryote stands for before, and then car stands for core or nucleus. So before the core nucleus hence the reason why it's named that, because there's no nucleus in prokaryotes. The cell wall surrounds the plasma membrane in prokaryotes. The ribosomes are spread throughout the plasma membrane in order to synthesize proteins. As we covered earlier, all cells have ribosomes. And plasmids are foreign circular DNA molecules in prokaryotes, and the kingdoms of prokaryotes are archaea and eubacteria. Kingdoms are basically the section below domain, so it gets a little more specific. The most broad is domain, then kingdoms is next, and then there are other levels below it. And in prokaryotes, lastly, bacteria cell walls contain peptidoglycan. Sorry, it's cut off a bit, my bad. Once again, if you'd like to pause, feel free to pause. Now we're just going to do some of the main cell organelles and their functions, specifically in eukaryotes. So in mitochondria, the mitochondria produces ATP. What is ATP? ATP is the main source of energy for the cell. The Golgi apparatus modifies, sorts, and packages proteins for secretion or intercellular purposes. Usually, if it's for intercellular purposes, it will be whatever it modifies will become a lysosome. And ribosomes synthesize proteins and can be found floating in the cytoplasm or on the rough ER. And then in the nucleus, the nucleus stores the cell's hereditary material and coordinates the cell's activities. The cell's activities includes growth, reproduction, protein synthesis, and metabolism. The endoplasmic reticulum plays a role in synthesis, folding, modification, and transport of proteins. There is a rough ER and a smooth ER. The rough ER has ribosomes on it. And I meant metabolism earlier. The cell's activities includes growth, reproduction, protein synthesis, and metabolism. My bad. Plant cells are a specific type of cell within eukaryotes. They never burst because they have Turgor pressure due to their cell wall. The cell wall allows the buildup of fluids in plants, which pushes the cell membrane against the cell wall. This is also known as Turgor pressure. The loss of turgor makes the plant wilt, and the cell membrane withers. This means that with turgor pressure, the cell actually benefits because the turgor pressure allows plants to grow and stand tall. And this is the last slide, basically a general view of what eukaryotes and prokaryotes are. So we know that eukaryotes have membrane-bound organelles, and that prokaryotes do not have membrane-bound organelles, and we can see that eukaryotes have a nucleus, meanwhile prokaryotes just have a nucleated region. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching.